Hey, Sam here from Sugar Spun Run, and today we are making the iconic Berger cookie. If you are from Maryland, specifically if you are from the Baltimore area, you've probably heard of Berger cookies. If not, you may not know what I'm talking about. These are super rich cookies. They are a cakey vanilla base covered, and I mean absolutely cloaked in a thick, fudgy frosting. We're using mostly basic ingredients. We have pantry staples here. We're using some cake flour, but nothing really too fancy. And let me tell you, it took me, I think it's been over 10 years that I've been working on this recipe, trying to make a copycat that lived up to the version that you can buy in Baltimore or in various places in Maryland. We got ours from the gas station. So let's get started. There's no chilling, so get your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Next thing we need to do is grab a large mixing bowl. You could actually probably get away with a medium-sized mixing bowl for this recipe, and we need some butter. I have 3 sticks here. 2 of these are for the frosting. One, the center one specifically, is for the cookie. So real quick about the butter, I am using unsalted for the cookie and salted for the frosting. I could talk a long time about why I made this decision, but basically I'm going to leave notes in the description in case you only have salted or you only have unsalted on hand, because you can make a couple small adjustments and make this recipe with either. So this is a half cup or 113 grams of softened unsalted butter, and you could use salted, but just check the description if you want to do that. And next we're going to be adding 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. This is 150 grams. Highly recommend using a kitchen scale if you're not already. Just granulated sugar today, and it's actually not even that much sugar in this recipe compared to many of my cookies. Don't worry, we'll get it in the frosting. All right, for today's recipe, we're going to cream together the butter and the sugar until it's light and creamy and fluffy. I'm going to be using my hand mixer today, but if you have a stand mixer, you can absolutely use that with a paddle attachment, no problem. Let's go ahead and start creaming this together. My butter's still a little cold, that's why it's giving me issues. Okay, once this is well creamed and light and fluffy, we're going to add our egg. Just 1 egg for this recipe, and ideally it should be at room temperature. Normally I crack it in a separate bowl, but I didn't grab one for myself today. It's 1 large egg. We're also going to be using a tablespoon of milk. A lot of times I will try to minimize the liquid ingredients in a recipe because we don't want the cookie to be cakey. This cookie should have a little bit of cakiness to it. Vanilla extract. We're not using a ton of vanilla in this recipe. And if you've ever had a Berger cookie, they're delicious, but they have a bit of an artificial flavor. That's just a fact. If you want a more authentic Berger cookie flavor, you are going to want to use imitation vanilla extract instead. I'm using real vanilla. I've tested the recipe both ways. They do taste more authentic with artificial. Use whatever you have on hand. Just know artificial will give you a more authentic flavor. All right, we're going to mix everything together again, get these ingredients well combined. And I used whole milk for this recipe. I suspect most milks would work here, but whole milk is what I use and what I officially recommend. We're going to slide this out of the way for now, bring back our kitchen scale. Let me just find myself a mixing bowl, a medium-sized mixing bowl. Don't forget to tare your scale. Can't say it enough, you should always be using a scale. Now for this recipe, we are using cake flour, not all-purpose flour. Classic Berger cookies have a nice, tight, dense crumb. Cake flour is going to give us this. Plus, as I mentioned before, they're a slightly cakier cookie. We're using 1 2/3 cup of cake flour. It's 190 grams. We're also using just a bit of baking powder. You need 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder for this recipe. Let's see, I'm gonna use my 1/2 teaspoon first. Generally with baking powder, I like to use an aluminum-free version. I need my 4th teaspoon. These are cute little measuring spoons, but they don't have a 3/4 measuring spoon. That's just a really convenient one to have. For our salt, we're just using classic table salt. Fine, very fine sea salt would also work okay. You just need a 1/2 teaspoon of this. And we're just going to whisk the dry ingredients together. You want everything nicely combined. Get everything nicely incorporated there. Slide our scale out of the way. We're done with that for now. Let's bring back our wet ingredients. And we're going to gradually add our dry ingredients to our wet ingredients, like in 2 or 3 parts. Stir this in with our mixer. I'm really excited for you guys to try these cookies. You need to have a sweet tooth though. Just a bit, that mixed in. Oh, try not to lose it all over your counter. Okay, we're going to give the sides and bottom of our bowl a nice good scrape. You should always do this even, and especially if you're using a stand mixer, flour likes to hide on the bottom. We want our ingredients well incorporated. And don't panic if you're like, oh no, it's a very thin batter, it doesn't look like classic cookie dough. That's because we're making a cakey cookie. Cakey cookies require a more wet batter. I actually ended up adapting this recipe from my vanilla wafers after a decade of trying to get this one just right. No chilling with this recipe. Let me just make a little room here. We're going to be using a tablespoon of dough. This is my handy tablespoon-sized scoop. A level tablespoon. I'll just drop this right on our baking sheet. And I'll bake like 6 to 8 cookies at a time. They seem kind of small. Make sure that your cookie scoop is filled all the way. Do give them a little bit of breathing room. I do like to stick sometimes. They'll spread a bit in the oven. They should spread some in the oven. We're actually going to help them spread a little bit. We'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, and then before we bake these, like I said, we want to help them flatten just a little bit. I take a little bit of water and just dip my fingers in the water and lightly flatten each cookie. Don't want too much on there. Also, maybe I might help encourage it to be round a little bit if it kind of dropped in a wonky fashion. All right, these cookies are going to go in our 350 Fahrenheit, that's 175 Celsius oven. Bake them in the center rack, if you have one, because my new oven doesn't. If you don't have one, keep a closer eye on them. But they need to bake for about 10 to 12 minutes. They're finished baking when the edges are turning a very light golden brown. All right, we have some nice light golden browning around the edges. We're going to let these cookies cool on the baking sheet until they're mostly cooled, so usually about 10 minutes. And then once they have cooled, we're going to remove them to a cooling rack, just so we can use our pan for the rest of our cookie dough. And because we want these cookies to cool completely before we put the frosting on. So while these are cooling, let's go and make our frosting. Now the topping for a burger cookie is like a really thick layer of chocolate fudge. I probably made 300 or 400 different variations trying to get this just right, and we finally have it. I seriously can't wait for you to try this. It comes together a lot like a buttercream though, not like a fudge. You do not need a candy thermometer. First thing you need is 1 cup or 226 grams of softened salted butter. Again, if you don't have salted butter on hand, just check the description so you can make it with unsalted. All right, now an ingredient you don't really see in buttercream frostings, but it's critical for this fudge frosting. You need some light corn syrup. This is 6 tablespoons, which is 88 milliliters. We're going to add that right in there. Oh, it doesn't want to come out. I think the spatula's a little too big here. There we go. Get all that in there. This is very important for getting us that consistency that we need, that fudgy consistency. I do want to remind you that corn syrup is not the same thing as high fructose corn syrup. You are still getting a cookie that has far fewer processed ingredients this way than if you were to buy the real thing. I know some people really don't like corn syrup. I do suspect glucose syrup would also work, though I haven't tried it, but usually they're fairly interchangeable. Okay, so now we are going to cream our butter and mix that corn syrup in with it. Get everything nice and smooth. Again, you can use your stand mixer. I'm just using my little hand mixer here. This butter is a little softer than my unsalted butter was earlier. Okay, once that's smooth and well combined, I'm going to need you to brace yourself because we are going to be adding some powdered sugar. We're going to be adding 5 cups of powdered sugar. That's 625 grams. Yes, it seems like a lot. Yes, these cookies are super decadent. But remember earlier when I mentioned we didn't put that much granulated sugar in the cookie? Now you can feel good about that and not feel so bad about all this sugar. Like when making buttercream, we're going to add the sugar gradually. So I do like a cup at a time. Always wondering, am I going to end up covered in powdered sugar? We'll see. When we're adding powdered sugar, just like when we are adding flour, you don't want to add too much at once. If you add it all at one time, it's going to be really hard to combine everything, and you're probably going to get very frustrated. So do it gradually. Save yourself a lot of frustration. Getting near the end. Last little bit of powdered sugar. Now, if your mixer is starting to struggle at this point, I will usually just add my heavy cream now. It's going to help everything combine a little bit easier. This is 2 tablespoons of heavy cream, especially since we have even more dry ingredients, even though we finished with our 5 whole cups of powdered sugar. We do sugar here. I'm called Sugar Spun Run for a reason. All right, cocoa powder. This is going to temper the sweetness quite a bit. We are using 2 kinds of cocoa powder. Yes, it's super important to get the best flavor. I promise, like I said, I literally made hundreds of these. So did Casey and Nikki. We need 2/3 cup of natural cocoa powder. It's like 67 grams. And I'm going to take a risk and add my other cocoa powder at the same time. Hopefully don't end up wearing it. We've got a little bit of butter and sugar in here, but this is 2 tablespoons of Dutch processed cocoa powder. This combo is important to get the most authentic flavor possible. So I'm sorry if you have to buy 2 kinds of cocoa, but in my experience, it is well worth it. And I'm going to also add just the rest of my heavy cream in now to hopefully tamp that down a bit so I don't end up wearing the cocoa powder. We're also going to add some vanilla extract. 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract in this recipe. And again, for a more authentic / artificial flavor, you would want to use an imitation vanilla extract. I prefer to not use imitation, so I am using real, but you'll get a truer flavor with imitation stuff. It sounds so backwards. I keep saying it. I'm doing a lot of talking about it. I'm sorry. It's counterintuitive. All right, let's get this mixed in. So this frosting, there is another critical step with this fudge topping to make it truly fudgy and taste like the real thing. So we are going to go over to the stovetop and heat this in a double boiler to melt it. I just use a makeshift double boiler, so I'm just going to use this same bowl that I had my powdered sugar in. Saves me a dish for later. So let me transfer this. But if you have like a regular double boiler, just put it in the bowl of your double boiler, so long as it's large enough, because this is quite a bit of frosting. And I'll give it a quick mix so that powdered sugar, that residual sugar gets mixed in there as well. Get this mixed in, and let's head over to the stove. This is the first time I'm using my new studio stove. Hopefully it goes well. Very excited to have gas back. All right, so with my makeshift double boiler, I just have a pot with a little bit of water in it. Important thing is that if your bowl sits in the double boiler, the bottom should not touch the water. So this is coming out dry. I know I have the right amount of water. Don't do too little or it'll all evaporate and your pot will burn. I'm going to turn my heat on like a medium low, and I'm going to bring the water to a simmer. If I can figure out which burner this is. I'm new to this stove. All right, once I have a gentle simmer going, and you do want to simmer, you don't want to boil, and you also want to keep an eye on your heat, because if it gets too hot, it'll start to boil over, it'll be a mess. So once we have a gentle simmer, we are just going to add our bowl, and we are going to stir gently and pretty consistently until this is melted, and of course I'll show you what that looks like. Our goal here is to gently melt this frosting. You don't want to heat it too rapidly or it will start to separate and it will be greasy and separated. You can see it's starting to get darker in some spots. This really doesn't take too long. Turn my heat just a little bit. I'm worried things are starting to boil there. First time on the stovetop, could mess it up. It's getting to be a nice, rich, dark, glossy color. Slowly. Here we go. This is a good consistency. It's nice and melted. Should look a little bit shiny. Perfect. Nice fudgy consistency. Okay, the double boiler, when you pick up the bowl, there's going to be steam, so I recommend wearing some oven mitts. And let's take this carefully back over to our countertop. Bottom is a bit wet, so I'm just going to dry that off. Try not to burn myself on camera. All right, now we do want to move fairly quickly. This takes some time to re-solidify, but we want to move while it's still in its nice liquid state, nice and beautiful. All right, now Berger cookies, they are frosted upside down. So take your cookies, flip them upside down, and put them somewhere where you don't mind making a mess. So I'm just putting them on a parchment paper lined baking sheet because it's going to make cleanup easier. Each cookie is going to get 1.5 tablespoons of icing. Maybe a little extra generous. Don't be too generous or you won't have enough to frost all your cookies. And we'll drop that frosting on top. And then use an offset spatula or a spoon would work too, to just gently nudge that over the cookie. Berger cookies are notoriously like a bit messy where the fudge just kind of envelopes the side of the cookie as well. And it'll naturally try to do that a bit. So I like to give it the opportunity by going to the edge, and then gravity will just kind of take care of the rest. I love these cookies so much. I have like 90 pages of Google Docs where I've been working on this one. If your frosting looks like it might be a little bit greasy, don't panic. It usually gets like a sheen on it while I'm doing this step, but once it dries completely, that should go away. Frosting needs a little time to set up and dry completely, but we're not gonna wait around for that. It is best that way, I'll be honest. But that is how you make the perfect copycat Berger cookie. Guys, I worked on this one for over a decade. I am really so excited to share it with you. If you try it, let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Make sure to check out some of my other fun cookie recipes, and I will see you next time. I just have no words. This is it, guys. I can't wait for you to try it. Whoa! Make sure your butter's soft. It's cold in the basement. That didn't seem right.
We're gonna die.
You don't want to separate it or it'll be separated.
Words of wisdom.
Drop some chocolate. That